Good morning, folks. It is July 1st. It's the offseason, folks, on a day that is normally the start of free agent frenzy. Today, we have a trade. Viktor Arvidsson getting sent from the Nashville Predators to the Los Angeles Kings for the price of a second round pick for this season and a third round pick for next season. If you break it down, it'll be the 39th overall pick in the draft this year. So in the top 40, because LA obviously wasn't that great this year. And they're banking on picking up Viktor Arvidsson, who has had an off 2 years sort of. They're hoping he bounces back, maybe just had some bad finishing luck and can come back and go back to that 30 goal scorer that we have seen him be in the past. Now, I'm going to bring up some data here. The first one I'm going to look at, or the first thing we're going to look at here is his stats. So he's 28 years old. So he's fairly young. He's still on the right side of 30. He had his birthday already this year, so he's got 2 more years before he hits 30. So a good amount of time left on him still. And he's cost controlled. 3 years left on his deal, so through the 2023-2024 season at $4.25 million, $4.25 million. Now, if they're getting a guy who is a 30 goal scorer at $4.25 million, that contract alone is a steal. The problem is he hasn't been that for the last 2 years. So if we take a look at his stats, and I really want to start looking really at the 2016-17 season, so basically 5 years ago, 31 goals, 30 assists in 80 games. The following year, 29 goals, 32 assists in 78 games. So those 2 years, he cemented himself 30-goal, 60-point player. That's sort of where you expect him to be when he was 24, 25 years old. Then the next year, he comes out, gets no assists in 2018-19, but 34 goals in 58 games. This guy was a scoring machine, and then he sort of dropped off. The following year, so last year before the season shut down, the shortened season, 57 games, 15 goals, 13 assists for 28 points. So 20 points less than the prior season, 20 less goals than the prior season. And then this season, 2020-2021, 50 games played, 10 goals, 15 assists for 25 points. So basically the same pace as the previous year. So for Viktor Arvidsson, it has been a sharp drop. And what I want to do is I really like looking at some analytics stuff in these cases to see what is going on, right? So this is courtesy of JFresh. Player data and the model all comes from Patrick Bacon at Top Down Hockey. And I find this really, really interesting. So in the top left corner, you'll see this projected WAR. And this is saying for next season, this model's projecting him to be in the 79th percentile of players, which is really good. That's a really good second line player on your team. And that's sort of where he used to be. Now, you look at 2018-2019 when he had 34 goals in 58 games in this little WAR percentile rank chart right there, right next to my head. He was like 98th percentile in 2018-19. And yeah, you score 34 goals in 58 games, you're going to be one of the most valuable players in the league that year. The following season, 19-20, where he had 28 points, 57 games, he was right around like 70th. And then this last year that just finished up in the 25th percentile. So you see that steep drop. But if you look at the chart below that, what's really interesting is how his defensive game has improved in that time. So 2018-19, 34 goals in 58 games in about the 80th percentile, or the 90th percentile in offense. That dark blue line down in the corner down there, that dark blue line at about 90%. And in 2018-19, again, makes a ton of sense. But that defensive line basically at 0. So he had almost no impact defensively for his team. You go to 2019-2020, that offense sort of dries up a bit, but the defense comes in a little bit. Again, not great, at 30-something%, but it is an improvement. And then this last year, in 2020-2021, that defense comes through even more. And now he's one of the best, the top 50% of players in the league defensively when it comes to players on just basically wingers at his position. And that offense kicked back up again, right? We see that offense last year, even though he only had 10 goals, 15 assists in 50 games, so half a point a game player, he was still driving offense at about the 75th percentile level. So better than 75% of players in his position at driving offense, but only getting 25 points in 50 games. You think, how does that make sense? Well, then you see that dotted line down in the corner, that finishing line. Woof. So, of course, best finisher in the league. The year that he had 34 goals in 58 games. Makes a ton of sense. Last year, that dropped down to 75th. And then this previous year that just finished, his finishing basically went down to nothing. He just couldn't score. So this is the bet the Los Angeles Kings are taking. They're saying, look, we have a guy who is still driving offense at a pretty good level. Right? For a guy making $4.25 million, he drives offense at a good level. His defense isn't terrible. His problem is he hasn't been able to finish. He has not been able to score this last year. So they're thinking, look, if his finishing gets back up even to 80% of what he normally is, we're still talking about a guy who can score 25 goals in a season pretty reliably, I would think. So that's the bet the Kings are taking. It makes a lot of sense. And so that's what you sort of see in these projections in the top left corner here. So 77% on offense. They're expecting him to sort of continue at the same offensive pace. Maybe the defensive side drops off a little, but the finishing going back up to 84% or 84 percentile. They're thinking if that happens, this is a great bet for the Kings and not a lot of risk, right? You're giving up a 39th overall pick and then a third pick the following year. Makes a lot of sense for the Kings. Change of scenery for Arvidsson might be able to fix things up. Anyways, that's all I got for this one. Hit that subscribe button and we will see you next time.